Welcome back, fans. Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking stories the MMA world has seen in years: the reported collapse of the UFC's gigantic White House event. What was supposed to become the most historic combat sports spectacle ever organized may now be falling apart behind closed doors. From massive security concerns to bizarre environmental problems,
Another problem that I always think about, especially on the East Coast, bugs.
Yeah.
So President Trump just opened the Rose Garden 2 nights ago, and he invited me to dinner there.
Yeah.
The amount of gnats that were flying around, I'm like, holy shit. As soon as I got on the plane, I called my head of production and said, yeah, let me tell you about the gnat situation tonight. So when you're a fighter, think about that lighting grid, the claw that we're going to have, the amount of power in the lights, moths, gnats, and God knows what else. Fighters trying to deal with that.
Yeah.
So
you remember Jabba Chamberlain? Remember the Yankee game where the pitcher was pitching, came in for like the save, and the gnats were flying all over his face and his eyes, and he threw the game. You got to see the footage of it.
These are all the things I think about. And I never knew that, no. But yeah, in your mouth and your nose while you're trying to fight. So I was telling Craig, my head of production, I was like, maybe we put fans in that can, because gnats have a hard time in the wind.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. These are all the little details that we have to think about. That's why I don't like fighting outside.
Yeah.
Ever.
Welcome back, fans. Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking stories the MMA world has seen in years: the reported collapse of the UFC's gigantic White House event. What was supposed to become the most historic combat sports spectacle ever organized may now be falling apart behind closed doors. From massive security concerns to bizarre environmental problems, including swarms of gnats invading the venue area, the dream of bringing the octagon to the White House suddenly looks far more complicated than anyone imagined. And when you start looking deeper into the situation, you realize this isn't just about insects flying around a dinner table. This is about politics, image, money, logistics, national security, and the enormous pressure of trying to stage a live UFC event at the most iconic address in America. For months, the proposed event had been promoted as a revolutionary moment for combat sports.
I mean, incredibly one-sided was the biggest thing that comes to mind. There wasn't a singular fight that was moderately competitive on the card. And, we need the highlights, and we need the knockouts, we need the spectacular things. But the best thing we can get is a back-to-back, like a back-and-forth fight.
It's not boxing, right? In boxing, you build athletes by them kind of crushing people that aren't on their level necessarily. But so many of these fighters on that card were already established stars. Right, they're on the back end of their careers, so there is no star building. So these guys and women, for me, it felt like they should have had the opportunity to fight someone in somewhat of a competitive fight.
The UFC was reportedly planning to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States with a mega event unlike anything the promotion had ever attempted. The event, unofficially referred to by many insiders as UFC Freedom 250, was expected to take place on the South Lawn of the White House in June 2026. The timing was symbolic in every possible way. It was set to coincide with Flag Day, America's semi-quincentennial celebrations, and even President Donald Trump's 80th birthday. The spectacle was designed to represent patriotism, entertainment, and American dominance all at once. But according to growing reports, the project may now be in serious jeopardy. The story took a dramatic turn after comments made by Dana White during an interview discussing the preparation process. White revealed that while attending a dinner at the Rose Garden, he immediately noticed a problem that triggered alarm bells inside his head. Gnats were everywhere. Small insects were reportedly flying around the dinner area in large numbers, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere that became impossible to ignore. White explained that the moment he boarded his plane afterward, he contacted his head of production to discuss the situation immediately. At first glance, people online laughed about the story. Social media exploded with jokes about the UFC being defeated by bugs before the first punch had even been thrown. But behind the memes and sarcasm, insiders understood why White reacted so seriously. The UFC CEO was not worried about a minor inconvenience. He was imagining what could happen if millions of viewers watched championship fighters swatting insects away under bright lights during the biggest event in company history. And that was only the beginning. Because once the UFC production team reportedly began analyzing the full situation, they quickly realized the challenges surrounding the White House event were far more dangerous than expected. The environmental conditions alone were already creating enormous concerns. June weather in Washington, D.C. can be unpredictable, humid, and difficult for outdoor broadcasting. Lighting equipment attracts insects. Television cameras magnify every detail. Fighters require safe and controlled conditions.
Yo no me lo creía. Yo, a ver, he estado en muchas ruedas de prensa, he visto de todo, pero nunca he visto a alguien ponerse de pie y hablar de la madre de alguien de forma tan mala. Tipo, fue bastante falta de respeto. Y Alex, al mismo tiempo, como hay tanto ruido, no se entiende mucho. Y digo, es que no me lo creo que le esté diciendo todo esto, tipo, sin necesidad, porque es que ni siquiera vas a pelear con él, como que, ¿para qué? Tú puedes hablar de la profesionalidad del otro, te puedes meter con el otro, no pasa nada, estamos acostumbrados a ello, sabemos a lo que vamos, pero hablar de la madre del otro de esa manera es como que simplemente me hirvió la sangre. Es como, oye, no podemos dar ese ejemplo aquí, ¿sabes? Que nos están viendo miles y millones de personas. ¿De qué forma estás hablando tú?
Medical staff need unrestricted movement. Commentators need protected production areas. Security teams need total control of entry points. Now imagine trying to manage all of that on the south lawn of the White House. This is not a regular sports arena. This is one of the most protected and politically sensitive locations on Earth. Reports began circulating that security coordination between multiple federal agencies was becoming increasingly complicated. Secret Service protocols reportedly created massive restrictions on crowd movement, equipment placement, fighter transportation, and even emergency evacuation procedures. Every single camera angle, lighting structure, broadcast tower, and fan section would require extensive approval. The UFC is used to controlling entire arenas from top to bottom. At the White House, they would be operating inside a government-controlled environment where every detail becomes a security discussion. That changes everything. Then there is the financial side of the story, which may be even more unbelievable. Early estimates suggested the event's total cost ballooned to nearly $60 million. That number stunned many people within the sports industry. Even massive UFC pay-per-view cards rarely approach that level of production expense. According to TKO executives, profitability was never expected to be the primary goal. The company reportedly hoped to recover roughly half the costs through sponsorships, partnerships, media exposure, and branding opportunities. In other words, this was meant to be a legacy event, a statement piece, a moment designed to place the UFC alongside major American institutions in terms of cultural significance. But legacy projects become dangerous when logistics start collapsing. Sources close to the situation claim organizers began privately questioning whether the event could realistically meet safety standards while still delivering the entertainment spectacle originally promised. Outdoor events already carry enormous risks. Add political visibility, international media attention, weather unpredictability, national security concerns, and live combat sports into the mix, and suddenly the margin for error becomes microscopic. One unexpected disaster could create global embarrassment. Imagine a power failure during the main event. Imagine insects covering the cage during a title fight. Imagine protesters interrupting the broadcast. Imagine emergency security lockdowns delaying the event live on television. The UFC has built its empire on controlled chaos inside the cage. But outside the cage, the company depends on precision. Dana White understands that better than anyone. That's why many insiders believe his reaction to the Nat situation was not overdramatic at all. To White, the insects symbolized something much bigger. the realization that nature itself could become a production nightmare during an event no one could afford to see fail.
I don't think this is a money grab for Conor. I guess number one, Conor doesn't need the money. His second generation of kids are going to be all set. I think that for him, I genuinely believe that he thinks he's going to come back and make a run. Whether that's realistic or not, I don't know. But I think in his head, that's actually what he thinks. I think he wants to go out there. He wants to knock out Max Holloway, and then he wants some other big fight against, I don't know who, but I think he wants a big fight, and he wants to challenge. That's what I genuinely think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, Kenny, you've been around fighters. Nobody knows when it's time to get the fuck out, and
Right.
and this is a big fight. Him and Holloway, that's a big name fight.
He's a big underdog.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
And the internet has not been kind. Fans across social media immediately split into two camps. Some accused the UFC of overreacting and argued the event should continue no matter what. Others said the entire concept was reckless from the beginning. Critics questioned why the White House should host a violent combat sports event in the first place, while supporters praised the idea as uniquely American entertainment. The controversy only increased the pressure. Meanwhile, fighters themselves reportedly remained uncertain about what was actually happening behind the scenes. Some athletes were excited by the possibility of competing at such a historic venue. Others privately worried about outdoor fighting conditions, temperature issues, distractions, and the unpredictable atmosphere. Professional fighters spend months preparing mentally and physically for peak performance. Even small environmental differences can affect timing, cardio, focus, and reaction speed. Now imagine fighting under national political attention, with helicopters flying overhead and insects circling cage lights. It's not exactly a normal fight week.
I'm gonna show her to my new apartment in New York, and
Make a coffee.
make a coffee for her, and then we
Take a bullet.
and then turn off.
Another major concern reportedly involved broadcasting complications. UFC production is one of the most sophisticated systems in live sports. The company uses enormous lighting rigs, specialized camera systems, advanced sound engineering, and complex wireless communication networks. Operating that infrastructure securely at the White House would require coordination with government communication systems and federal security technology. Any interference or failure could become catastrophic for the broadcast. Sponsors also reportedly started asking difficult questions. Companies investing millions into partnerships want guarantees about image quality, audience experience, and operational stability. If the event became associated with chaos, technical disasters, or security scares, sponsors risked attaching their brands to a public relations nightmare instead of a historic celebration. That reality may have pushed the UFC closer to reconsidering the entire project. Still, despite the reports of cancellation rumors and internal panic, no official final statement has completely closed the door on the event. Some insiders believe the UFC could still attempt a modified version with reduced attendance, tighter production limits, or an alternative location nearby. Others believe the organization may quietly move the card to a traditional stadium while maintaining patriotic branding connected to the original White House concept. But even if the event never happens, the story itself already reveals something fascinating about modern sports entertainment. The UFC has grown so powerful, so mainstream, and so culturally influential that it genuinely considered transforming the White House lawn into a live combat sports arena. That idea alone would have sounded impossible 20 years ago. Yet today, it feels believable because the UFC has evolved from a controversial niche promotion into a global entertainment machine capable of partnering with political leaders, billion-dollar corporations, streaming giants, and international broadcasters. The ambition became enormous, maybe too enormous, and perhaps that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the biggest danger isn't failure inside the cage. Sometimes it's the uncontrollable reality outside of it. Nature, politics, security, weather, logistics, these are opponents even Dana White cannot simply overpower with confidence and aggression.
Guy saw it there, you know what I mean? I don't understand English and nothing to put a felt bad. He saw that and he stepped up as a brothers, threw the bottle, whatever the case it was, on Hooker's face. He saw that he was going too far. And man, to Hooker, how gonna even talk about that guy? Maybe he's one of those that not even probably get along with his family. You see the way the guy had that attitude. Maybe he don't get along with his brother, stuff like that. Like he doesn't seem to be a guy that is problematic part of the family.
As the MMA world waits for official confirmation about the future of the White House event, one thing is certain. This story has already become legendary. Fans will talk for years about the card that almost happened, the event that promised to bring the octagon to the White House, the production nightmare involving millions of dollars, unprecedented security operations, political symbolism, and swarms of gnats that unexpectedly became the center of the conversation. Only in MMA could something this insane even sound remotely possible. And if the project truly is canceled, it may go down as one of the wildest what-if moments in UFC history. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this breakdown,